We've heard a few times that sentience perhaps is beside the point of a lot of what we're talking about. But so much of the science fiction, so much of the thought around artificial intelligence, since we first came up with the idea, has been around the notion that the computers might actually figure it out. They might become more like us than we are. What do you think about this notion of AIs somehow, some way, eventually becoming sentient beings that are acting much more like us?
So I think that there is something important about consciousness that comes from life and living cells itself. And I think no matter how much we mimic through artificial intelligence or not so artificial and not so intelligent systems, it's still not life, and it's still not conscious in the way that we experience it, which isn't to say that there couldn't be emergent capabilities like task-oriented manipulation or persuasion. But another area that I do a lot of work in is in neural organoids. These are using stem cells to turn into, you coax them into becoming brain tissue, which then can differentiate into becoming what has been called small brains on a chip. They're not quite, right? But what they are trying to do is model the human brain in order to be able to study disease and the different disorders of the brain and to give better models than animal models. And some of those are starting to show more complexity in their capability of being able to develop neural patterns that look something like early human consciousness that you might see in the developing fetus. I think the possibility of something like that, when put into an animal model, for example, is far more likely to develop some sentient-like capabilities because it starts with our cells. It differentiates into the human brain. It organizes and has the unpredictability and the complexity of life, and it has sensory input and output once it's transplanted into an animal in ways that start to have those capabilities. We're still a long way from that, but I think that's what I see much more likely of us seeing in our lifetime than true sentience in AI models.
How do you see this, Kevin?
I spend less time thinking about the question of sentience and more time thinking about the question of just capabilities and just raw output. I think we are rapidly approaching, if we're not already there, a point at which the majority of the new text appearing on the internet every day will be generated by computers, not by humans. I think we are rapidly approaching, if we're not already there already, a point at which the vast majority of computer code will be generated by AI rather than by human programmers. I think a lot about a paper that a researcher named Dan Hendricks put out last year that was about natural selection and sort of comparing Darwinian evolution to what is happening with AI today. And his fear, and he's someone who worries about the existential risk of AI, is not less that we'll create something that will be so powerful that it will replicate all over the world and overtake us and then turn us all into paperclips or whatever, but that we will sort of gradually cede authority, that organizations, companies, universities where AI is given bigger roles will eventually perform those roles at a superhuman level, and that we will sort of cede more and more of our authority and decision-making power to those machines as a result of their capabilities, and that the result will be that we will be effectively outcompeted in our own society by AI. And I don't know whether that's 2 years away or 5 years away or 10 years away. This is, by the way, a very popular game to play in San Francisco these days. It's called What's Your P-Doom? P-Doom is the nerdy way of saying, what probability do you assign to the possibility that AI could rise up and kill us all? And this is actually what people do at dinner parties now. They go around and they say they're P-Dooms. Anyway, great place. But I think that I worry less about the kind of Terminator doomsday scenario than I do about just the observation that these systems are performing many tasks at or near human level, and what happens in a society where we just decide, you know what, we're going to kind of let the humans go on autopilot, let the machines kind of take over a little bit.
Nothing gave me chills more this entire evening than him just sort of offhandedly going, is it 2 years? Is it 2 years? Is it about 2 years until that happens?
Yeah,
2
maybe
years
3.
it could be. Yeah. So, okay, I'll give you the last word on this idea of sentience before we break, Kate.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to pick up from where Kevin left off on this question around ceding authority, because it's a really important point that in many cases there is this doomsday scenario where we essentially outsource all of our cognitive decision-making, all of our institutional decision-making, who will go to university, who will go to jail. I mean, these are really complex decisions where we have very long-established human institutions that have been part of those decision-making processes where we're seeing an end run. We're seeing already a lot of systems really start to intervene in ways that really aren't being fully tracked and definitely aren't being fully regulated. So the thing I would say is that that's already happened. What Kevin just described, that's not 2 years from now. We are already ceding authority in key domains like criminal justice, like healthcare, like education. And it really matters that we start to have this conversation publicly about what we're okay with and what we're not okay with. Because frankly, this is the baby level. When we talk about where this is going, the area that I've been spending a lot of time looking into is quantum. Once we get to quantum level computation, this becomes so much faster and so much more complex than what we're dealing with now, which is why I think it's so important that we ground these conversations in values. What are the human values we want to protect and that we're going to fight for, regardless of how quickly Silicon Valley decides to give us new products.
Ooh.